It's Wednesday, and you all know what that means. It's time for another episode of Life in the Movies podcast. I'm one of your co hosts. My name is Ryan Cam. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Just want to give a brief thank you to last week for all of you that joined us for the live monthly preview for May. That was a lot of fun. It was born out of time constraints on my end, but it turned out to be honestly one of my favorite episodes I've ever done for this. So I wanted to say just a brief thank you, and I know Jacob feels the same way. But on this week, back to our regular format, we're going to be diving into some Iron Fist coverage, talking about season one, episode one, and then kind of throwing it back to one of our very first episodes. We're going to be doing part two of the Boomerang retrospective, talking about some old cartoons, and it's going to be so much fun. But first, I have to introduce my co-host, Jacob Martin. Jacob, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Life's been going well. School's been going good. I can't talk tonight. Life's been going well. School's been going well. Blessed beyond measure, and God's been good to me.
Well, that is wonderful to hear. How is school going?
School's going pretty good. I don't think I have near as many assignments this quarter as I have the last time, but I'm still been pretty busy. I did preach. I was asked to preach at the congregation in North Carolina this past Sunday, which was pretty good experience. And I got some outlines I need to work on in the next couple weeks, and it's been it's been good.
Well, that's great. That's wonderful to hear. Like I said, keep us appraised of new developments and congratulations for actually getting to preach in front of actual humans. I can't imagine. I don't know if I could. I mean, I'm in the choir and I do sing in front of people, but I mean, I've imagined trying to preach in front of people, and I didn't know if I could do it.
Yeah, it is a little nerve wracking if you've not had the experience. And uh this will be this sounds kind of shocking to say, but for a while I was very shy and introverted. But once you if you know what you want to say, uh, mixed with your knowledge of the Bible, it comes out pretty naturally to me when I get all the stuff together, when I write everything down in my lessons. And it's I feel like the more I've done it, the to me the it's weird saying easy because it sounds like I don't try when I say that, but I think the smoother it goes, the more I do it.
Yeah, well, like I said, that sounds great. In terms of movie wise, do you have anything interesting that you've watched lately?
I'd say I did rewatch Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 in preparation for the third movie coming out this weekend. I did rewatch the first one earlier in the month. Both Guardians movies are awesome. Honestly, I guess this is going to be my hot take. Kind of hinted at that one in last week's in the May preview, but I actually do prefer Guardians 2 over the first film. I still believe that on this rewatch. I think Guardians 2, for one, it has a better villain. I think Kurt Russell is very underrated as Ego, one of the more underrated villains in the franchise. I think the soundtrack, I would say, is better in Guardians 2. One, because I'm more of a sucker for the songs in the second film, but I think they flow the story, I feel like, even better than the songs in the first movie as a whole. And I also prefer, I feel like James Gunn was more confident in Guardians 2 as director, where you feel his whole vision throughout the course of the entire movie. I enjoyed even the blend of his own humor mixed with the emotional maturity with some of these characters, especially with Peter Quill and Yondu, especially in that relationship, along with Rocket Raccoon. Those three character arcs I thought were fantastic. I think elevate the family themes that made the Guardians film so special. And this is one of my personal favorite MCU films. It's, in my opinion, it's the funniest film in the MCU. I think James Gunn just has this brilliant knack of like having these layered characters while giving some really outrageous jokes that really make the movie stand out. And the buzz for the third film, I'm really excited to check it out. I've heard nothing but good things about it. I've heard some say it's the best Marvel film since Endgame. We'll see how that goes in the coming days, but right now my favorite Guardians film is Guardians 2.
Yeah, Guardians 2 is fantastic. Really, outside of the Avengers films like Avengers Age of Ultron, those four, and the Captain America trilogy, I think the most solid trilogy in the MCU is the Guardians ones. And I haven't even seen three, but just based on the reviews I've seen, it's looking like it's going to be ending in the best way possible. I I'm of the belief that Guardians 2 is better than Guardians 1. Guardians 1 is very good. But I think what Guardians 2 did by taking what we know in Guardians 1 and taking him in a darker direction, because Guardians 2, let's not get it twisted, is a very dark movie. Like what we learn about Ego and about how he kills Peter's mom, that just like rips your heart out and stomps on it. And like you said, Kurt Russell absolutely owns his role as Ego the Living Planet. It's darkly funny, but the humor doesn't take over anything. It really just it nails it. It hits it right on the head. The line where Star-Lord calls Rocket a trash panda, that
Yeah.
that whole exchange is just fantastic. And then you got the needle drops in across all the movies. These movies both have great soundtracks. I don't know what my favorite is. I'm actually going to be compiling a list of it for something, but I'll let you all know of it when that comes closer to it. I think among my favorites, I think my favorite needle drop would have to be Brandy, You're a Fine Girl, just because of what we know about it first, and then the dark undertones that it does with how it ties into the Ego character. The Brandy, You're a Fine Girl, what a good wife you would be. But then it's like just turns into like oh, Ego, you're a monster. It's so good.
Yeah, they're all great songs in the soundtrack. I think, like I say, the best ones are the ones that have narrative flow, the story. Brandy being one of them. The Chain by Fleetwood Mac, especially used during the climax of the movie where Peter has to face his father, is done spectacularly. And then at the end, when they play Cat Stevens' father and son during Gandhi's funeral, which is very poetic. You're on
I
mute.
accidentally muted myself. Be beautiful song by Cat Stevens, and it just how it ties in with everything with Yondu's sacrifice and the lyrics and Rocket crying the single tear. It's one of my favorite endings in any MCU movie by a significant margin.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Another movie I recently watched. It's been ages since I've seen this movie, but I rewatched it for the first time in many years on Disney Plus, and it's a film called Tom and Huck, which came out in 1995. This was Disney's adaptation of The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. This film stars Jonathan Taylor Thomas, who was big at the time on the sitcom Home Improvement. He also voiced Simba in The Lion King, Simba as a kid. And he plays Tom Sawyer in the film. Very mischievous, naughty boy who gets into a lot of trouble. Then he and his friend Huckleberry Finn, they witness a murder. They make a blood oath to not reveal what happened, but the town drunk who was in attendance, who witnessed the murder as well, is being framed for it. And Tom Sawyer has this moral dilemma on, should he reveal the truth or should he just stick with his friend who made the blood oath? Now this movie got trashed on by critics. It's like 20% on Rotten Tomatoes. A lot of people thought it was a terrible movie. I did look up reviews and they said it was not a good adaptation of the story. I've not read the original book, so I can't really make any comparisons. So I'm just watching it as its own movie. But the movie itself, I thought was fun for what it was. it's definitely drenched in that 90s cheese where like some of the acting is a little bit on the cringy side and the dialogue isn't really the best. And there's a couple moments in the film that I think they play it straight, but it comes off unintentionally funny. Some of the way some of the stuff is edited together, but as a family film, it's not bad. The camaraderie between Tom and Huck is pretty good. There's a good little adventure story in there. Some of the comedic elements I think work when it needs to be. There's a pretty dark villain that actually does make the movie memorable. This character named Engine Joe, who is actually a pretty scary presence in the few scenes that he's in. So I got to give the movie some props for that. The movie itself isn't anything spectacular or anything, but it's an entertaining family watch. Has some good laughs, and I think the adventure is pretty good for its target demographic, along with some of the themes that it addresses.
Yeah, between Home Improvement and The Lion King, Jonathan Taylor Thomas never has to work again, just based off of those royalties.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't think Tom and Huck was that big of a movie because he tried doing some starring films by himself, and they weren't really that big of hits. I think some of them have gone on to become cult classics, like I'll Be Home for Christmas, but that's a movie that I've never really cared for personally. But Tom and Huck is actually a pretty solid film. Like I thought he gave a good performance as Tom Sawyer. The film had some pretty good entertainment value, and I feel like the film is severely underrated. I think, especially if you have kids, I think it's worth at least a one-time watch on Disney Plus.
Yeah, I'll be home for Christmas is one of those movies that just everybody seems to hate except for me. I didn't think it was as bad as some people have said, and really the linchpin of that is because the eventually the main character sees the error of his ways and tries to improve. But that's just me. I can understand why someone wouldn't like
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, my real issue with that is I get what you're saying with that, but I feel like it happens way too late into the story to where his turnaround felt forced to me. And I didn't really buy it compared to like other movies that do the same trope where you feel some ounce of sympathy for him, but because you don't see that for most of the movie, to me it was hard buying the turn.
Okay, yeah, that is fair enough. But if that's all for you, I have one that I would like to bring up is Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. This is currently in theaters now, based on the legendary book by Judy Blume. That review is currently on the channel now if you all are so inclined. And really, I was not expecting to like it as much as I did, but I thought the movie was very good indeed. This is directed by Kelly Fremont Craig, who directed The Edge of 17, which, if you all have not seen The Edge of 17, see The Edge of 17. It is a very good coming of age movie. And I love Rachel McAdams in this movie. I love Abby Fortson as Margaret in this. I think this movie is a very, very solid coming of age movie. And in a time where the teenagers that I've seen in movies recently have just been very sour and cynical, this is actually not as bad as those. So I give that one a modest recommendation.
Yeah, I saw this movie advertised. Obviously, we covered it in the April preview, and it looked pretty solid for what it was. And I kind of came to the realization somebody brought up on Twitter that the child actress who plays, I assume Margaret is the name of the teenage girl,
Mhm.
is also the same actress who played Cassie, Scott Lang's daughter, in the first two Ant-Man movies. So hey, it's pretty surreal.
Yeah, really young Cassie, in Ant-Man and Ant-Man and the Wasp, the first Ant-Man and the Wasp. I would have liked to have seen her come back for Quantumania, but I guess the age gap just didn't work out. But needless to say, Abby Fortson is doing good. She was in Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, and I think she has a bright future. I hope she gets more work after this. And Rachel McAdams is, of course, great, but Rachel McAdams is normally good in anything she's in, so that's pretty much a no-brainer. I loved her in About Time. I loved her as Irene Adler in Guy Ritchie's Sherlock Holmes films. I really like her as an actress. But what have you all been watching lately? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to read what you have to say. All right, Jacob. Luke Cage is in the past. Now it is time to dive into Iron Fist, and this is our last season that we have to cover before we get into the Defenders and beyond that. This first episode is called Snow Gives Way. After being presumed dead, Danny Rand returns home to New York after 15 years, only to find things aren't as they were. Now, unlike a couple of other series in this coverage, I had seen them when they premiered, but I had a hard time remembering them. I had never seen Iron Fist, so I'm as blind as Jacob is going into this, and I will cede the floor to him on this one because when when we were talking about it, when we were talking about before we recorded tonight, his exact words were, "I do have dot 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 some thoughts." So, Jacob, please take it away.
So, Iron Fist. I I don't think the show just on one episode is trash. Like I had seen some corners of the internet, but it definitely did miss the mark in some regards. I think if I had to grade just this first episode standalone, I'd probably give it a 2.5 out of 5 because there was a lot of potential in this first episode. I thought the title sequence was cool. There's some intrigue in the title character with Danny, who's been gone away for many years, and he sees that a lot of things have changed, and there's clearly a conspiracy to try to discredit this guy. And I'm interested in learning the answers to everything. I will give the show that. I'm interested in seeing where it's going to go, but there were quite a few like frustrations I had with the way it was told, which prevented me from saying, "Oh, this was a really good first episode." Like, for example, some of the conveniences in this episode took me out of it. Like when Danny is just sitting down, he's trying to figure out things, and then this like bum comes up to him named Big Al, who's like, "Hey, I got this cell phone here. You can look at anything you want." And he's like, "Oh, I want to find out what happened to me and my parents. Oh, you're supposedly dead." That's just some lazy writing. It took me out of it right there. And then Big Al dies later in the episode. I'm like, I don't feel for that guy. It was a cheap death, cheap character, lazily written. Also, I've enjoyed the production aesthetic on the other Marvel Netflix shows, but for some reason, Iron Fist just looks cheap. Like the visual effects in this was not good. Like there's like this weird, I don't know how would you describe it. Like whenever every time he's flashing back to his past, there's these like weird little white lines that cover the screen and these flickers, and then like, am I watching like a recorded VHS tape right now? It looks weird, and I'm not really liking the aesthetic of this. And there's this other effect where the character jumps over a taxi to defend himself. And I was watching that, and I'm like, we just go back to like early 2000s CGI with some of these effects. It looked laughably bad. Now, I mean, there's potential to be had here. I thought the lead character was solid. I don't think the acting was that great by any means, but I'm intrigued by the character and some of the questions that I think this season is going to address. I didn't really care for the Ward villain that much. He just seemed like a stock bad guy to me. But then we meet the guy's dad in like the final 10-15 minutes. And I don't know the name of this actor, but I saw him. As soon as I saw him, I was like, wait a minute. I know that guy. That's the same guy that played Faramir in Lord of the Rings movies. So it's cool that I got to know a familiar face when watching the show. And to be honest, I thought, I'm just going to call him Faramir for the sake of time. I thought Faramir was the best aspect of the entire show. Like, I felt like even in that short window of time, I'm intrigued by this character. I think he's going to be, I don't know about great villain, but I think he's going to be a very fascinating villain to see explored, and I hope the show takes its time to really flesh him out and see what the deal is with his character. But I think as far as premiere episodes go in the Marvel Netflix shows, it's definitely the weakest. It's definitely the cheapest made. There's some story issues I didn't really care for, and it definitely does not live up compared to how strong my first impressions were on Daredevil and Jessica Jones. But then again, I wasn't that big on the premiere of Luke Cage, but it got better as it went along. So if Iron Fist at least goes better as it went along and it has a good finale, it might not be that bad, but it's overall very frustrating.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything you just said. The actor's name in question who plays Faramir is named David Wenham.
Okay.
David Wenham. So yeah, I when I saw him, I'm like, I have seen you somewhere before, and I like because Faramir is such a sympathetic character for a variety of reasons. His dad just being a massive D word that rhymes with chick, but we won't discuss that. But yeah, he was good in his limited role, but I had such a hard time with this episode, and really, I gave it as much leeway and as much context, and I tried to keep my mind as open as possible. I just couldn't latch on to any of these characters. First of all, Danny Rand does more than a few things that in another world could get him arrested. Like he
Yeah.
steals a car, breaks into his friend's home. It's just like, and if Misty Knight were here, you'd be arrested like that.
Yeah.
But no,
Although to be fair, that was his old house. So,
yeah,
and
well,
it
even
wasn't
still,
his.
even still, it's not his house anymore.
I get that, but he's still a confused dude who doesn't know where he is at this point in life. So I gave it a little leeway, but I get what you're saying.
I do agree, though, that that jump over the taxi, I'm just like, is this 2005? Like, what are we doing? What are we doing here? This is Netflix, like, or Netflix at the time, Disney Plus now. Like, is this the best we got? Like, I credit to Finn Jones. I think his performance was good. I liked him, but I think the material he was given was just not that great. Like I said, does several offenses, and you got you got the Meacham siblings, who I did not like either. You got Ward, who I'm like, okay, like he's like this crazy guy's breaking into your office. I mean, I get it, but then in flashbacks, you'll learn that he did really bad things to Danny. Like he kicked him in the plums and he put like a dead frog in his sandwich in like a time. And I'm just sitting there like, well, my sympathy is going away further and further until it's just completely gone. It is written off into the sunset.
Yeah, that was another story issue I had. Thank you for bringing that up. Like he's trying to go up to this guy and say, "Hey, remember me? We're friends." But we even saw in the flashback that the guy was a jerk to him. Why are you trying to restore things with him when you were never good friends to begin with?
Yeah, it's like Danny's trying to go up to this guy and we see in a flashback he like throws the Monopoly board across the thing and he's like, "Oh, here comes mommy and daddy to give you a kiss." I'm like, Danny, my brother in Christ, please remember that this person was a total P word that rhymes with Rick to you. So it's like my dude, you need better friends. But yeah, this was a very tricky episode. It was not great. And a very sharp dip in quality from the first episode of Luke Cage and Jessica Jones. Because the first episodes, I think, from my experience, like Daredevil season 1, Daredevil season 2, Luke Cage season 1, and even Jessica Jones season 1, the first episodes are usually pretty strong, if that's fair to say. This is the weakest first episode of any of these shows that we've covered.
Yeah, I definitely agree. There was not really that much to the episode that stood out anyway. Uh, I will say I did enjoy the street level martial arts fight at the end of the episode. I thought it was well choreographed. I think if they stick to like the practical stunt work, I think there'd be some fun action on the show, but do less of the jumping over cars and do extravagant stuff that you would see in bigger budgeted movies, because that's not your strong suit and you don't have the budget for that.
Yeah, in the same universe where you have Daredevil, where those fight scenes are just incredible. Like Daredevil does flips, but he's not like doing like Super Mario stuff like wahoo, like none of that. It's very reality based in what he does. And the dude is blind, so it's even more impressive. This dude is just doing like tumbleweeds, and I'm just sitting there like, bruh, like what like where did you go to school? And also, I don't know how relevant this is going to be to you, Jacob. I don't know if you have any knowledge of this. Have you ever seen the TV show Arrow?
I've never watched it, but I know of it.
So basically, the premise in the first season of Arrow is that Oliver Queen got lost in a shipwreck. He went to this island where he survived through help for about 5-ish years before he made a return a changed person. Does that sound familiar to you?
It does sound a little bit familiar, because this show you got the Danny character who survived the plane crash somehow, and he was gone for like 15 years, and it looks like he's had some martial arts training from somewhere that nobody's heard of, and now he's back.
Yeah, and honestly, after we do the Marvel Netflix shows, we could do a whole thing on Arrow and the Flash, and that's a whole universe in its own entirety. I think that would be fun. But I noticed that, and you haven't seen the show, which okay, fair enough, but that's literally cut and paste the same premise. And again, I could be make connecting dots that don't exist, but it's a scary coincidence. I guess
I
that's my
guess I guess it's kind of like in 2018 when both Black Panther and Aquaman both came out the same year, and people were saying like these two stories are both kind of similar with these two different worlds, and you got like the son of a king ascending into the throne, and you got somebody else challenging it, and you have this big divide in the kingdom pretty much, and then the hero has to be the underdog and unite the kingdom once again. And people are like, "Oh, Aquaman just ripped off Black Panther," and I'm like, "No. One, I think it was just coincidence, and two, both. I don't know which character was created first, but those two stories were inspired by Shakespeare. So you gotta have some creative. Yeah, you have to have your at least acknowledge your influences in there while still coming up with your own story and characters."
Yeah, I definitely see that. But I'm gonna put a pin in that Arrowverse thing because I think that that would be fun because I've seen a lot of Arrow and a lot of Flash, but none of the others, and you haven't seen any of it. So
No,
once we get done with the MCU Netflix stuff, I say we do some Arrowverse stuff. Would you be interested?
I'd be interested in that. Yeah.
Because CW gets crapped on quite a bit, but really those first few seasons of Arrow I loved, and I haven't seen the rest of the show, so it will be interesting. But let's put a pin in that. We still have a lot of Netflix MCU stuff that we have to tackle, so one step at a time. But I turn it over to all of you. What did you think of Iron Fist episode 1? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Love to read what you have to say. All right, Jacob. Well, let's get into the main event for the evening, the Boomerang Retrospective Part 2, throwing it all the way back to episode 3 of this show, or 2 or 3, if my memory serves.
It
We
was one
haven't,
of our very early episodes.
yeah, we haven't touched Boomerang in quite some time, and I thought now's as good a time as any. I found an article online from CBR.com called Nine Best Shows That Aired on Boomerang. Well, we'll be the judge of that as we are Boomerang experts, Jacob and I. So, Jacob,
I
I'm ready to go if you are. Let's dissect this.
am really ready.
So, starting off with number 10 is The Smurfs. Hanna-Barbera Productions produced The Smurfs based on the Belgian comic series by Peyo, who also worked as story supervisor. It ran for 9 years. The Smurfs had a total of 258 episodes, including 7 specials. So I had no idea there were that many Smurfs episodes, to be honest. I'm not really that big of a Smurfs fan, to be honest with you. If it was on in my prime Boomerang viewing, I would watch it. But it wasn't a go-to for me, Jacob. What about you?
I mean, I like the Smurfs when I watched it. I like the colorful world. There were a lot of cool characters. Gargamel was a good villain, but I don't think it was ever one of my all-time favorite cartoons, especially as far as Hanna-Barbera goes. I will say though, I think a lot of people crap on the Smurfs because the Smurfs movies, particularly the two animated live action hybrid films from 2011 and 2013, were so terrible. I think a lot of people are like, "Oh, the Smurfs have always been awful," but I think no. I think it's because those two movies, and the show itself has nothing to do with how bad the movies are. I will say Smurfs Lost Village I thought was pretty solid. It wasn't great by any means, but it's definitely a step in the right direction for how to do a feature length animated Smurfs movie, even if it did have some story issues along the way. But the Smurfs series is still, I think, pretty solid for what it is.
Yeah, like I said, I honestly remember more of the bumpers for it because you would get these previews for it with the voice of like, the Smurf Village, and then they would like see it, and then it would always end with the large like Smurf going la 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 and romping through the village. That's something that will just live in my memory till the day I die.
I completely forgot about that ad. Thank you for reminding me.
I'm sorry or you're welcome. Take your pick.
No,
But
I'd say thank you.
all right. Well, number nine is the Snorks. The Snorks are small, colorful sea creatures, and that just happened. No, I'm not a robot. Live recording is awesome. All right, the Snorks. The Snorks are small, colorful sea creatures that use the snorkels on their heads to propel themselves around, making a snork sound. The snorks are very similar to humans. Some main snorks include All-Star Seaworthy, Dimmy Finster, Daphne Gilfin, and Tudor Shelby. I apologize to that poor snork for being named Tudor. Spelled Tooter.
Oh, Tudor. Oh, you've been doing some tooting under the water, boy.
Oh my goodness. But Jacob, what is your opinion on the snorks if you
I
have?
don't have a real opinion on the Snorks. I remember seeing like one or two episodes of that show, but it just never really caught on with me. I don't know which came out first, the Smurfs or the Snorks. But to me, the Snorks just felt like the Smurfs light, but just not as colorful and not near as charming. So I didn't really get much out of the Snorks. And honestly, I forgot about that show until you brought it up just now.
Interesting. Well, old Tudor.
Tutor.
Oh man. But next up, number eight, and this is a show that was absolutely my jam, Secret Squirrel. Produced by Hanna-Barbera, Secret Squirrel first appeared in the world of Adam Ant, which shout out to Adam Ant. That show was awesome as well, with just a banger of a theme song when he's up and Adam Ant, da 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 da. Such a good song. But receiving his own show in 1966. Running for 2 seasons, Secret Squirrel was a secret agent slash spy parody, specifically a spoof of the James Bond films. Uh, Secret Squirrel and his right hand man, Morocco Mole, worked for the International Sneaky Service, or ISS, led by their superior, Double Q. That's an awesome name for a superior, Double Q.
Double Q.
They use a collection of weapons to fight evil, such as a machine gun disguised as a cane, a bulletproof trench coat, and Squirrel's purple fedora, which contains several gadgets. He tangos with a few villains throughout the series, the most common being Yellow Pinky. I remember Yellow Pinky. I always looked out for him. But Jacob, did you see any Secret Squirrel?
Yeah, I saw a little bit of Secret Squirrel. You talking about it, some of that has come back to me. I remember Secret Squirrel having a dope theme song. And I remember I think the character being enjoyable, but I think if I rewatched it now, I'd probably appreciate it more since the character's supposed to be a spoof of James Bond, and that's one of my favorite action franchises now.
Hmm.
And back then, I didn't know who James Bond was at the time. Uh, I, yeah, I probably would still enjoy it if I rewatched it. It's been quite a few years.
Yeah, I remember like Today I learned that yellow pinky is another name for Goldfinger. And like Goldfinger, yellow pinky.
Mm.
Like today I learned that. And I'm just like, hmm, the broccoli family might actually have a bit of a case. Like the non-union legally distinct version of Goldfinger.
Wow, that's crazy.
Well, next up at number seven is actually one I don't think I've ever heard of, or if I've heard of it, I can't remember it. The Grape Ape Show. ABC ran The Grape Ape Show in 1975. It was an animated series produced by Hanna-Barbera, and the character Grape Ape appeared on many other cartoon shows like Dexter's Laboratory and Robot Chicken. It only had 16 20-minute episodes, but the character instantly became an iconic fan favorite. I think I remember Grape Ape more be like Grape Ape, but I honestly can't remember much beyond that, Jacob.
I don't think I saw much of that, but I know the character. But that's about it. I just know the big giant purplish ape going, "Oh, great ape." That's about it.
Yeah, I do remember that. I just remember that. It's like that particular catchphrase. But next up at number six, and this is something that is just near and dear to my heart, Johnny Quest. Oh man, I love this show. Johnny Quest is perhaps one of the more successful shows created by Hanna-Barbera. It ran 26 episodes on ABC primetime from 1964 to 1965. Johnny Quest was the first science fiction action adventure show Hanna-Barbera produced and inspired shows that followed. Impressively popular, its reruns for 20 years on three major US television networks. And there was actually, and I don't believe it mentions this in the article, there was actually kind of a reboot slash sequel called The New Adventures of Johnny Quest, which aired on the Toonami block of Cartoon Network. I've actually seen all those episodes, and the CGI in that show is trash. Like they do this whole gimmick of kind of like what we know today as the metaverse. It's called Questverse, or I believe it's Quest Space. I'll have to look it up, but it's basically like VR, but in like the early 90s. And it is so cringe to see today. But the OG Johnny Quest from the 60s, I'm honestly shocked that no one has like remade that or remade it like into like a live action movie nowadays. Because man, that's like a gold mine right there.
I know, and they've tried adapting the wrong Hanna-Barbera properties into live action that stayed better, worked better as animated stuff, like the Flintstones and Scooby-Doo, which should have just stayed animated movies for all I'm concerned, even though I do have a soft spot, especially for the two live action Scooby-Doo films not directed, but actually written by James Gunn, which is hard to believe. But Johnny Quest would make a great live action movie, like especially since there's not really that much fantastical aspects with like visual effects. That's strictly an action movie right there, where characters explore things, they uncover like some conspiracies, and some enemies go after them. And considering the original cartoon was made for kids, it got pretty violent. Like I rewatched some of the episodes, and there's some like there's some body counts on some of the episodes, and they're constantly shooting at kids throughout the whole series, which is kind of crazy to think about. People would be offended by that if it was made today, but they just did not care about or think about stuff like that back in the 60s. And I respect the cartoon for having a bit of an edge to it while still having that high entertainment value. I think a live action Johnny Quest movie would be awesome if you get the right director and the right actors.
You know, one of my favorite episodes of that show is called The Robot Spy. It's basically about how Dr. Zen basically sends this, like, I don't know what to call it, but it basically is an eye with eight legs, and it's a robot. And it gets like launched and sent, and the army gets it, and they store it at the base where the Quest family is because Dr. Quest is working on this laser. And well, this robot just is terrifying because it opens like its one eye and then it lifts up, and then the music is like boom, 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 and then, like the way it sneaks up on guards and like uses like this disc to like be like a and like the guards faint. I'm like, when was this released again? The 60s?
Yeah. Yeah, I can see like a horror director tackling that. Do a lot of cool practical effects and gore with something like that, and you'd be like, "This was a kids' cartoon originally."
Like Mike Flanagan, Lee Winnell, you need to get on top of this now. But yeah, Johnny Quest is just awesome. It's one of my favorites. Well, next up is the Pink Panther show. This has nothing, or I guess it sort of kind of has to do with the movies that just one of the most bizarre movie series of all time. The with a weird continuity and one like with Peter Sellers that was made like after his death cobbled together with like false like deleted footage. It's a cluster. But the Pink Panther cartoons are awesome. The Pink Panther show was a series of shorts which aired in between shows on different networks from 1969 to 1978. It ran on NBC and it ran on ABC from 1978 to 1980. I remember these happening quite a bit, like the theme to like didn't 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 from Henry Mancini is just iconic. Do you have any good Pink Panther memories?
Yeah, I do. I don't. Yeah, I watched some of the cartoons on Boomerang, and I think I had some of the DVDs as a kid too. I don't think I got into Pink Panther as much as Looney Tunes or Tom and Jerry, but the Pink Panther still had some great laughs mixed with the iconic theme music from Henry Mancini, like you already discussed. I think the one cartoon I really loved from Pink Panther, I think it might have been one of the first shorts that they did, which was the one where the Pink Panther and this pink painter keep like trying to outpaint each other. And I thought it was absolutely hilarious. Some of the slapstick and visual gags in that episode. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's, I think, one of my absolute favorite nostalgic cartoons as a kid. I've always thought you'd make a good animated Pink Panther movie with the Pink Panther character. I'm surprised they've never done that yet.
Yeah, I was about to say because you could do a lot with a premise like that. So it would be interesting to see that. Well, next up in number four, let's get ready for some nightmare fuel. The Banana Splits Adventure Hour. Oh man, I remember these. Produced by Hanna-Barbera, the Banana Splits ran from 1968 to 1970 on NBC. It was a variety show with different comedy and musical segments. Its iconic theme, the Tra La La song, or One Banana, Two Banana, was written by N.B. Winkless Jr., who also wrote the Rice Krispies theme. The more you know. You have any Banana Splits memories, Jacob?
Not really. I never watched the show. I know of it. I know Boomerang used to do sing-alongs of the different Hanna-Barbera songs, and so I knew the song because it was on that sing-along. The I don't know if I really liked that song or I hated it because of how annoyingly catchy it was. I honestly don't know. But the only real thing that I got out of the Banana Split show was how mind baffling it was that somebody turned Banana Splits into a horror movie a couple of years ago, which is just bonkers to me. But other than that, I have no nostalgia for this show.
Someone get Jacob Collins on the phone. That's our next watch.
The Banana Splits movie.
He would lose his mind.
Can't be as bad as Battlefield Earth.
It would certainly be more interesting than that. That is for sure. Well, next up at number three, it's a classic. It's a standby. It's Tom and Jerry. Another show produced by Hanna-Barbera. Tom and Jerry was made for MGM. Tom Cat and Jerry Mouse were first featured in short films from 1940 to 1958. With 114 shorts in total, it won 7 Academy Awards for Best Animated Short Film during that time. So, yeah, I'm sure, Jacob, you have some good Tom and Jerry memories.
Oh man, you won't believe I love Tom and Jerry. It's one of my favorite classic cartoons. And watching them even years later, the slapstick still holds up. There's some comic brilliance between the two. And yeah, there is a formula. Cat's trying to catch the mouse, but the mouse always outsmart him. But I don't care. It was hilarious every single time. The Hanna-Barbera shorts especially were awesome. There was, I think I've seen some of the later ones. There was one, I think his name was Gene Deitch, I think was his name, who did some in the late 50s, and those were not good because the animation was super cheap and it didn't have the same style. But then I think Chuck Jones did some in the 60s, and I thought they were pretty solid, but they were not near as good as the Hanna-Barbera ones. But yeah, the Hanna-Barbera era is definitely fantastic. One of my favorite Tom and Jerry episodes is the one where uh, Tom gets this book called How to Catch a Mouse. And so every single episode, throughout the episode, he's trying to read the book and try to catch Jerry, and every single time it backfires. Like my favorite one is a mouse will not punch when you trap him in a corner.
I
And
know
so,
exactly the one you're talking about. It's
so
amazing.
Tom so Tom goes up to Jerry to try to punch him in the corner, but Jerry punches him back. And then Tom breaks the fourth wall and goes, "Don't you believe it?"
Oh my god, I remember that. It's so amazing. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do when I saw that. It was just so weird. Let me pull it. Let me pull it up. I want to do at least the audio of it, just
Yeah, it's
so
funny.
you all can properly hear it. I'll That's the sound, and it is just it's it's amazing.
Yeah.
And then what also like freaked me out as a kid is when Tom, like, you would hear like kind of the human voice attached to him, like he'd be like, there was this one on a cruise ship where there's a stick of dynamite and Tom is like locked in like this cabin and he's like, no, no, hey, let me out. And I'm like, that was an actual human voice I just heard.
Well, then you hear human screams whenever Tom's in pain, where he's like, "Ah!"
That's so amazing.
Because it's funny, if you watch like the very first Tom and Jerry shorts, it was a cat scream, but a cat scream just wasn't funny because it feels like animal cruelty when you have a cat scream like that. So putting the human voice with the cat screaming actually made it really funny.
I just remembered this one. I just remembered this one. I can't remember exactly what the cartoon is called, but this like Tom thinks he's like seducing this female cat. And he's like, "Oh, you set my soul on fire.
Yes.
It's not just a little spark." And while he's doing this, Jerry's lighting his tail on fire. He is like, "It's a flame, a big roaring flame. Oh, I can do it now. Burning, burning." And then he's like, "Hey, something is burning around here." And then he realizes it, and it's
Yeah,
it's so good.
I remember that one too. I think my other favorite is where Tom is doing the piano recital, and then Jerry ends up hijacking it, and there's like the constant back and forth between the two. That has some great slapstick physical comedy in it. That's some of the best in Tom and Jerry.
Oh, without a doubt. A side note, we should do a podcast just on Tom and Jerry, or we should just like watch some Tom and Jerry once. That
Oh,
that that
that
would
would
be
be that
that'd
would
be
be awesome.
that'd be tons of fun. We either review it or just watch it, like just watch along style. Let's get Jacob Collins in on that too. Next up at number two is Scooby Doo, Where Are You? This ran for just a year, but it ended up having 12 different spin-offs after this. And honestly, no matter how many spin-offs you do, you cannot beat the quality of the original Scooby Doo, Where Are You? I love those episodes to death. And really, I don't think, and I love that I have a special place in my heart for the live action ones with Matthew Lillard and Freddie Prinze Jr. and Sarah Michelle Gellar and all of them. I have a soft spot for those movies, but the originals are just, they can't be beat.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like to me, the original show. I mean, yeah, you can poke fun of the animation style nowadays, but it's still an excellent show with great characters, memorable ghost, pretty solid mysteries too, especially for its target audience. And that theme song, man, that theme song, sometimes it gets stuck in my head when I think about Scooby Doo. Like, oh man, that theme song slaps so hard. Scooby Dooby Doo, where are you? We
We
got
got
some
some
work
work
to
to do
do.
now.
Yeah.
That's one of the all-time greatest songs. And then just the opening of how you see the haunted house and you see the bats fly out and it just feeds into the song. You're just like, we're eating good tonight. We
Oh
are eating
yeah.
so good. Well, that's another episode. We should just talk about Scooby-Doo for a night. That would be fun. But last but not least, number one is The Wacky Races. And this is one of my all-time
Oh,
favorite shows right here. From 1968 to 1969, CBS ran Wacky Races for one season, 17 episodes, spawned several reboots and spin-offs, and I heard a rumor that this show was actually based off of a movie called The Great Race, which starred Jack Lemmon, Tony Curtis, and Natalie Wood. Jacob, I don't know if you've ever seen that one. It's actually really good. You should see it.
I've seen The Great Race. It is awesome, and I can see the comparisons.
It's so much fun. Jack Lemmon is so funny in that because they're stuck on this iceberg in one scene, and it is like, and then and like the Tony Curtis character is like, "Don't panic," and then Jack Lemmon's character is like, "I'll wait for the water to come up to my upper lip, then I will start to panic." It's like Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis, they were just undefeated.
Oh yeah, definitely. But
But yeah, Wacky Races is just an incredible show. Just so many memorable characters too, like Dick Dastardly and Muttley and Professor Pat Pending, who just was basically Doc Brown but in the 60s. Like they had this almost like the same sort of kind of hairdo if you really think about it. You got the Slag brothers who like were cavemen and they used their feet to power their car, and then you got the gruesome twosome in that like Munster style car. You got Rufus Roughcut, whose wheels were saw blades. I am not kidding, folks. This was actually a thing. There was this one car that was a tank. It was basically Gomer Pyle. Like that was basically their homage to Gomer Pyle. There was the hillbilly ones. I can't remember which their names there.
oh,
There's the Anthill Mob, who were just awesome. They were among my favorites. Then you got Penelope Pitstop, who got her own spin-off, in which she is basically kidnapped every episode, and she's always like, "Oh, this person who always kidnaps me, you'll never kidnap me, right?" And like, of course not, Penelope Pitstop. And he ends up kidnapping her every single episode.
yeah.
And then you got Peter Perfect, whose car always breaks, no matter what. And he always he always drops the "oh fiddlesticks." It's he, or another one he only used once is like, "oh for Shaw. I just washed and polished this." Oh man. But Wacky Races is such a good show.
Oh man, I love all those characters. You brought back so many good memories, and I think what's saying something is I think that show only lasted like one season, and there were only like 18 episodes,
17.
17 episodes, but they were all so memorable, so funny, so entertaining that I could just rewatch them whenever the show was on loop on the Boomerang channel, and I never got sick of them when I watched them because they were just so fun to watch.
Yeah, the creativity was just off the charts. And just you just see just the love that was poured into it. And I don't think it's a style of animation that we'll never see its like again. And
Yeah.
I feel kind of sad, but I mean it just is what it is, unfortunately. And
Yeah,
the
we
characters
talk
are
about
just
some
so
of these
iconic.
other oh sorry, but we talk about some of these other Hanna-Barbera properties that would work great as their own animated movie, especially after seeing the Super Mario Brothers movie and how well they did Mario Kart and that. Wouldn't it be cool if Wacky Races got a feature-length movie with an updated animation style and they really go all out with like the bonkersness with that premise?
I would be there day damn one. day damn one.
Right. Um, yeah, that would be awesome if that was the case.
Oh man, well, this is the end of the list, and really, I think we could do several Boomerang retrospectives because it's like some we return to and just take us back to like simpler times. Because the Boomerang Network, it's still around. It's more of a streaming service now than anything, but it was just a legendary channel. Just the one-off specials, the New Year's Eve they do the Tom and Jerry Slam Fest, or they do something Looney Tunes related.
Yeah,
I was
I
inter
remember they did a marathon of all the Flintstones episodes one time, and I think that was how I got was introduced to the Boomerang channel.
I do know the one you're talking about. Let me see if I can find it.
Yeah.
Boomerang Flintstones Marathon. There was a Father's Day Flintstones Marathon. There was one called Great Gazoo Day, which would have been very interesting.
Yeah, that's the character that killed the show.
Pretty much, yeah. Oh, what do you make of it, dum dum?
The character was still handled better in that film than in the live action movie Viva Rock Vegas, but was horrifying to look at.
We do not talk about that character in this house.
Ooh,
But yeah, probably not the case. But did you all have any good memories of any of these cartoons, like Tom and Jerry, Johnny Quest, whatever? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Love to read what you have to say. And Jacob, that is another episode in the books. It is really a privilege to do this with you every single week. Where can the people find you?
People can find me on Letterboxd, Twitter, and Facebook, and you can also subscribe to my YouTube channel. What I've been doing since moving to Tennessee and going to school, I've mainly been doing live streams where I talk about what I've watched in the past, in the past weeks, and then I'll just edit those live streams down and then re-upload them as separate movie reviews. At the time we're recording this, I'm about to upload the movie review where I'm starting my Mission Impossible series, where I'll be reviewing all the Mission Impossible films in a run up to Dead Reckoning Part 1 coming out in July. And each review will be a collab with a different YouTuber. Spoiler alert, Ryan Cam will be featured when we get to Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. We'll be on the lookout for that one. But for the first film, I got Dave from his channel, Interpreting the Stars, joining me, where we review the first film back in 1996, featuring a very younger Tom Cruise with shorter hair, which was interesting to see in retrospect. But then I got I think the other videos I'm going to upload from the past live stream, re-upload, I guess. Tomorrow, at the time this drops, Wednesday, tomorrow's Thursday, May the 4th, Star Wars Day. So I'm going to upload my thoughts, I guess, again on Star Wars The Phantom Menace, as I recently did watch that earlier this past month. So I talked about that in the live stream, so that's going to drop on that day. And also, I got a Celebrating Disney coming up where I talk about nostalgic animated film from my past, Kim Possible, So the Drama, which I hadn't seen since it originally aired in 2005. So it was fun revisiting that. So I got some other content coming soon. I got a planned live stream coming up with Henry Mockingbird next week. Be on the lookout for that. And some occasional music content as well that I'm trying to dive into, which I think is going to be fun.
Yeah, I saw on your Twitter you're actually listening to a Chris Stapleton album.
Yeah, I'm about to do a project. I'm trying to get some of my other YouTube friends that cover music on their channel to react to different artists. I did a collab recently with Ryan Summit from his channel Worst Reviews, and we did a big epic live stream, I think back in March, where we shared our thoughts on Queen and we shared our ranking on their top five songs and top five albums. And some of my other YouTube friends, Jason the Old Millennial is going to be one of these YouTubers as he covers music on his channel as well. I'm getting Jason and Adam from his channel, What the Gym. And real soon we're going to be diving into Chris Stapleton, who's an artist I really love, by the way. But some of the other YouTubers are not really as big on country music as I am. But I feel like Stapleton would be a good gateway since he kind of blends country and rock in his sound. And I think that'd be a good gateway for people like, especially Jason, who's more of a rock guy, like classic rock guy. And I'm excited to hear what these two YouTubers think about Chris Stapleton, because I think Stapleton is awesome and he's one of my favorite artists working today.
Yeah, Jacob's channel will be linked in the description. Go give him a subscribe. And as for this channel, I will be continuing my roads to Asteroid City and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse respectively. On Friday, I will be dropping my review for the Royal Tenenbaums. And then this coming Sunday will be my review for Spider-Man 3 with Brevin from Brevin's Flicks and Games. So definitely check that out. And I will also be reviewing Guardians 3 when that does come out. But as for this channel, if you like this video, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe and click the bell to allow notifications so when a new video drops, you'll be the first to know about it. For Jacob Martin, my name is Ryan Cam. We will see you in the next one. You take care.